This is where MAGA comes to talk. Welcome. Boy, a lot's been going on. We've got a lot to talk about. And I'm having my Starbucks in protest of Zohan Mamdani's call to boycott Starbucks. You know, this guy Mamdani, think about this. He's mayor-elect, right? His first act as mayor-elect is to call on the people of New York to hurt a business in the city that he's about to become mayor of. How does that make sense? How many Starbucks are there in New York City? I bet you there's more Starbucks in New York City than in any other city in the world, probably, right? Next, maybe Seattle, which is a smaller city, has more. I don't know. But it doesn't make a lot of sense to call for an economic boycott against a major business in your own city that you've just been elected mayor of. But, you know, Mamdani is a child who's never done anything, doesn't know anything, and is a communist. So there's a lot going on. Trump said he made a decision on military intervention with Venezuela. I want to talk about that. And I want to follow up on the Marjorie Taylor Greene. On my next podcast, I'm going to get into some of the details about these Democrats in contact with Epstein and Maxwell, this new thing with Jamie Raskin. Jamie Raskin was involved, it looks like to me, in some possible criminal activity, getting these attorney-client privileged communications from these prison workers. So I'm going to cover that in detail on my next podcast, so stay tuned for that. But on my, did you guys check out my podcast last night? I had Laura Loomer on with me. I called Loomer, and she was out to dinner, and she left the dinner table to do the interview, and she really dropped some big stuff. So if you missed that, check that out. Now the thing about I asked this question on my podcast last night. Welcome everyone. My name is Brian. This is where MAGA comes to talk. It's a chilly morning here in South Florida. It's like 62, which is cold for us. I asked this question last night on my podcast. I'm going to ask you guys in the chat room, okay? What they're trying to do is create this illusion that MAGA voters are abandoning Trump. And if you look through everything they've done with Trump, I think the first major smear of Trump was the Access Hollywood tape, right? So from the Access Hollywood tape to Marjorie Taylor Greene right now, and everything in between, with the exception of when they shot him in Butler, okay, and tried to shoot him again at the golf course. That's when they were trying to assassinate him. But other than those two instances, everything from the Access Hollywood tape to Marjorie Taylor Greene this weekend, the Never Trumper forces are always trying to get MAGA people to drop Trump, right? That's what they spend all their time doing, is to get MAGA people to drop Trump. And what I said on my podcast last night is that out of everyone I know who's MAGA, and I know a lot of people, okay? Out of everyone I know that's MAGA, I don't know of a single person that has dropped President Trump. Do you? I asked this question on the podcast last night in the chat room. They all said no. No, not known a single person. There's been some high-profile people who were never Trumpers at one point in their life, right? Tucker was Tucker, Candace, people like that. They were never Trumpers. Ben Shapiro. I'm talking about people that are MAGA people that have flipped. No. And the people that call me on my program, or this troll in the chat room, they were never MAGA. They were never MAGA. They're pretending to be, right? And I don't know. And the people I know, I'm talking about in my personal life. I'm not talking about people that are news junkies or involved in the political machine. I'm talking about people I know in my personal life, friends and family. I don't know a single MAGA person who has ever turned away from Trump. Do you? Mm-mm. But they're trying to get this trend going that MAGA people are dropping the president. That's just not the case. It's total BS. And if you hear the people that call me on the program, you can tell they're all fake former MAGA, right? You can tell. Sometimes they'll lose their cool and accidentally just say something that totally exposes. But you can tell there's no, because everything President Trump has done is what we elected him to do and more. He hasn't let us down on anything. I did a whole show the other day. MAGA people do not care about the Epstein files. That had nothing to do with President Trump, right? So we don't care about it. So they care, oh, well, I voted for him because he promised to release the Epstein files. Who would vote for President Trump to release the files on a pedophile that died 6 years ago? That's stupid. That's just stupid. Nobody buys that. That's all fake MAGA. You know, he did with the tariffs everything we hoped he would do, and a ton more. He shut down the border. He's shut down the drug trafficking. He's shut down the sex and child trafficking. He shut down the slave passage that the Democrats had coming up from the southern border. He's been doing mass deportations nationwide, right? I mean, there's just nothing that he has done that any MAGA person would say, oh, he's gone too far now. It's what it is it's a it's a psyop. And Marjorie Taylor Greene, we picked up some big information about her. You know, what Laura Loomer told me on the podcast last night is that she was in bed with, not literally, figuratively, that she was figuratively in bed with, oh shoot, it's early in the morning. I haven't had any coffee yet, so Kevin McCarthy. 50-year mortgage. What's wrong with a 50-year mortgage? Banks, I love President Trump's number one expertise is real estate, the financing of real estate, and dealing with banks to get money to buy real estate. So if you're going to criticize President Trump about something, you should find something that's not his lifelong expertise. The 50-year mortgage, first off, isn't a requirement. It's an option. And the other thing about it is President Trump was talking a little bit about this the other day. Some banks are having a hard time closing mortgages because property is so expensive right now. The payments are too high. So the 50-year mortgage is a way for them to close more mortgages because it'll bring the payment down a little bit. That's all that's about. When it comes to money and real estate, even a never-Trumper would have to admit that's President Trump's area of expertise. He knows more about that than any of us ever will. No, I'm not censoring, but I'm not going to allow people to put profanities in my chat one letter at a time. Only $200? What do you know? You're some financial expert? Not necessarily. Mm-hmm. Yeah, welcome everyone. If you're new, make sure you subscribe. Okay, I'll answer some of these questions. Now, the H-1B visa, I'll talk about that. I talked about this on my podcast a couple of times. You know, this interview with Laura Ingraham. There's an article. This article is on my X, Brian Craig Show on X, and I went over all this on my podcast yesterday. I did 2 podcasts yesterday. This was the first one I talked about this. President Trump is moving major companies manufacturing high-level tech jobs back to the United States, right? He's made over $1 trillion in deals. The CEO of Ford said they have thousands of mechanic jobs that pay $120,000 a year that they can't fill. We don't have the under 30s, right? That's the college crowd. We don't have enough people that are entering the workplace or of the age to enter the workplace who have the skills, the technical skills, and the willingness to work. I mean, the trolls in this chat room are in that demographic. What are they, what do we got in that group? A bunch of trolls that are gamers. The girl, I was talking to a caller yesterday. There were a couple of surveys done. I have 2 articles about this on my X as well. So you guys should, most everything I read and talk about in the news, I post to my X, Brian Craig Show. So you guys should follow me there. There were a couple of surveys done with young people on what job they want when they grow up. Number 1 was YouTuber or TikTok star. They all want to be YouTube stars, TikTok stars. They don't want to be mechanics working at Ford. They don't want to be astronauts. So we don't have enough people to fill these jobs of all of this manufacturing. The Democrats pushed manufacturing out of this country 50 years ago. President Trump's bringing it back. And most people that even have college degrees today, they don't go to vocational school. They have useless college degrees in basket weaving and women's studies and all this crap. So they don't have the skills to fill these jobs that President Trump's bringing back to the country. So he can't get these companies to come here and say, "Oh, by the way, we don't have enough qualified workers for this, and we're not going to allow H-1B visas." So that's why he's doing that. You can't have a both, right? Do you want the manufacturing back or not? Rubbish? Well, that's a foreigner. Americans do not use the word rubbish. That is either a Canadian or an Australian or someone from the UK. Americans do not use the word rubbish. We say bullshit or trash. We don't say rubbish. Rubbish is not an American. Americans do not use rubbish. Nope. You could say you're Detroit all day. If you're in Detroit, you're from another country living in Detroit. These people out themselves all the time. These foreign disruptors. Rubbish. Please. Americans do not use that word. I've said rubbish more in the last 60 seconds than I've said it in the whole rest of my life combined. And this may be the first time I've said rubbish. I've heard the word, but I may not have ever used it before. AI will take all the jobs. Well, then you should be happy since you're unproductive and not working and don't want a job. No, the way that it works is, there's throughout history, there's always been inventions that have come along, and society adapts to them, right? I mean, what do you think happened to mail? People that worked in the mail business. A lot of people worked in the mail business when email came in. I mean, when's the last time you sent a letter? When I was a kid, people were sending letters all the time. And the mail business isn't just the postal workers. It's the people that make the envelopes, the people that make the stamps, right? All these different levels of things. So whenever there's a new technological development, there's a shift, and you have to learn to grow with it. I mean, look at me. I've been on the radio since 91, 92. I still am. But when all these new technologies came, I adapted to it. Live streaming, podcasting, and all of that. You have to adapt to the changes. That's the way it is. There's an entire episode of Star Trek about this. It's called The Ultimate Computer. The Ultimate Computer. It's a funny thing, I'll tell you, give you another example, with technological inventions and innovations. When I was a kid in the 70s and 80s, there were all these correspondence schools that you would learn how to do trades in. My grandfather was he was a police officer for 35 years. in Columbus, Ohio, and he retired to Florida. And he was one of those guys. He retired when he was like under 60 years old. I don't know how old he was when he was retired. He was probably about my age when he retired. But he's one of those guys. He had his pension from the police department, one of those guys, but he was too young. He got bored. He decided he was going to become a locksmith. And he had a correspondence school. And he became a locksmith in a correspondence school. And they would send you'd get these, it was crazy. He'd get these boxes in the mail, and they would have books in them and locks and tools. And he had a whole locksmithing business for the rest of his life, right? Well, there's no more correspondence schools. The internet destroyed correspondence schools. You go to Udemy or something, right? So there's always technological advancements. You just got to move with the flow. Go, Those correspondence schools are gone and out of business. I went to the grocery store. I don't know if it was yesterday or the day before yesterday. I can't remember, but I went to the grocery store. There was no one in there. It was a ghost town. Why? Because DoorDash or Instacart. You go to a restaurant. Restaurants are empty these days. It's because of DoorDash and Uber Eats, right? So the restaurants may still be selling food, but they don't need as many servers. So there's always technological innovation that affects jobs. So all this paranoia with AI, you can't stop these once something's invented, it's invented, right? So once something's invented, nothing's been uninvented. So once something is invented, you can't uninvent it, and people are going to use it. So that's the thing with AI. AI is weird and everything else and new. It's what it is. No, I don't have my phone to take calls out here in front of Starbucks. So, no, you can't call while I'm at Starbucks. You could call, but no one will answer the phone. Yeah, AI is Trump's fault, yeah. Exactly. They think everything's Trump's fault. It's like, President Trump said sometime in the new year, we're going to get the $2,000 checks. Did you hear this guy? He calls me yesterday. Well, are we going to get him on the 1st? Are we going to get him before the 1st? He's trying to find some way to say Trump's wrong or lying. These people are just desperate. But when you live long enough, you see all kinds of inventions. I mean, look at what the internet has done. The internet, AI is an extension of that, but the internet has put so many people out of work. And the technologies, newspapers. I was driving home yesterday, right? And there's this area right before you pull into my development. When I first moved into my house a little more than 20 years ago, the internet was still big, hot and everything else, but there were still newspaper machines around. When is the last time you went into a store and bought a newspaper? And that's how we used to do it. When I first started in this business, I had to spend so much money on newspapers and magazines to be informed as to what was going on before the internet. And, oh man, when the internet came around, it saved me a lot of money. I had to buy 3-4 newspapers a day. I had to buy magazines like Time and Newsweek every week. It was expensive and a hassle, and you could never be as up-to-date as you are today with as fast as news moves on the internet. But look at how many people made a living off of newspapers. I remember, this is how it happens, like with AI. And a lot of you remember, I would, early in the mornings, like at this hour, like when and before the internet, when people still bought newspapers, I left my house at 5 to 5 this morning because Starbucks opens up at 5. And there were for my whole life, there'd be people driving through my neighborhood delivering newspapers out of their car, and the car would be so filled with newspapers you couldn't even see through the back windows because the newspapers were there, and they would just throw them out the window. Those people are all out of work. I knew a guy that he had a regular job, but to make extra money, he worked at this place where they put the newspapers in the plastic for the delivery drivers to deliver them. Those people all lost their jobs. Or what about toll roads? Remember the days when you were on a toll road, like the Turnpike or something, and you would have to actually stop and pay a person to go through? Those don't exist anymore. There may be a handful around in the whole country. Those don't exist anymore because of the technology. So anyway, I mean, we could do this all day. When there's developments technologically, people get out of work. Even your gas station, right? Gas stations used to be full service. The reason they're self-service, well, I guess in New Jersey, can you pump your gas in New Jersey yet? Because I remember for a long time, it may still be that way. But the reason the gas stations went self-service to the degree that they did is because you don't need help to pay now. You can pay with your debit card, your credit card, or even your phone with Apple Pay right at the pump. How many gas station attendants lost their jobs because of that? So, AI is just another major invention, and you have to learn to move with the developments. Like I've done, and it wasn't good. When the internet, when live, I remember I was working at a radio station in Miami when audio streaming first began. The internet was new, live streaming began, and people in radio, at the radio stations, were panicked about live streaming, that we were all going to be out of work, and they wouldn't live stream the radio stations. And then they first started doing it. I remember the station that I worked at, they did it so that they would look like they were up to date with everything, but you could only have 10 or 12 people listening at a time because the streams, So all these things. Technology developments always puts some people out of work, but creates many new opportunities. You just got to see rubbish, another European person. Americans don't call things rubbish. So no, liberal. This is this AI revolution. I mean, how many? Look at the movie theaters. They're pretty much almost all out of business now, because our televisions at home are so good. Not just the streaming services and everything else, but the televisions are so good. So the movie theaters pretty much run out of business. So so no, I don't worry about the AI. Americans don't say rubbish, we say bullshit, or something along those lines, if we're using it in that context. If you're talking about the rubbish you take out, we say trash. I've never said rubbish in my life, I don't think, until this stream. If you're new, make sure you subscribe. My name's Brian. This is where MAGA comes to talk. Now, Marjorie Taylor Greene, and by the way, make sure you check out my podcast last night. I was lucky to get Loomer on, because Laura Loomer. I was talking to a caller, Sean from Massachusetts, and I said, maybe I should interview Loomer. So I texted her, and you see this on the show. I texted her while I was talking to Sean from Massachusetts, and about 5 or 10 minutes later, she texted me back. So I went to break and called her. And if you watch on the vertical live stream of that last night, you can actually hear me talking to her on the phone, and then she gave me a few minutes. She was at dinner, and boy, she really told us a lot. She Marjorie Taylor Greene has been working with Kevin McCarthy for years. So she's been compromised for a long time. And I had that story last night on the podcast that she has made since 2021 $25 million on stock market investments, on a $700 and some odd thousand investment. She's got Paul Pelosi results on her stock picks. So that's it. Yep, MAGA all day, every day. That's right, man. So Marjorie Taylor Greene is compromised. That's it. She is completely compromised. And what I can't figure, she had $10 million before, right? So is she worth $35 million now? 30? How much? What's her net worth now? She was rich. She was a millionaire before that. And this is what I don't understand. Why are her children having a hard time affording groceries and insurance if she's a millionaire so many times over? Her kids should want for nothing. Why are her kids struggling if she's worth so many millions? What's that about? Is the story even true, or is she just hoarding all the money and not helping her family? Bad mother? What do you think? Something doesn't make sense there. Yeah, someone will ask her about it. It's really a shame. It really is. It is a shame. But President Trump has excommunicated her from the MAGA movement. He said she's a traitor. He's calling her Marjorie Traitor Greene, which we all got to start calling her that because that's what the president said her new name is. He's taken away her MAGA card and excommunicated her from the MAGA movement. She is Marjorie Taylor Greene. Marjorie Traitor Greene now is no longer MAGA. That's it. It's President Trump's movement, and if he says you're no longer MAGA, you're not MAGA. She's been excommunicated. Yep. It's his movement. He formed it, founded it, and leads it, and will for the rest of his life. Keep chugging that vodka. I wish this was vodka in the morning. You think I could drink a glass of vodka like this, though? I wouldn't mind having a little vodka, but no, it's coffee. Remember, Mamdani said boycott Starbucks, so go get a Starbucks today. Coward. What is this? Back to the Future? You think I'm one of the McFly family? You call me a chicken? Oh, no, oh, and I'm going to lose my mind? I'm MAGA for life, man. MAGA for life. It's nice out. I was going to ride my MAGA scooter today, my Vespa, but it's a little too cold for the Vespa this morning. But maybe I'll go for a ride later on today. By the way, no soy milk in my coffee. Half and half, baby. But it'll get like in the low 80s today, probably. A little chilly in the morning. Welcome. If you're new to my channel, make sure you subscribe. This is where MAGA comes to talk. That's right, and we're talking about all the issues. Also, President Trump, he said on Air Force One yesterday that he has made a decision on Venezuela. So, it's about time, right? I mean, these drug cartels in Latin America have been, how many Americans have been killed? I bet you I think it's easy to say that more Americans have been killed by the drug cartels than by all the wars we've been in combined, probably, right? What do you guys think? How many Americans are dead because of drug cartel drugs illegally imported into our country? What would be your guess? Is there a number on that? How many millions? Yeah. So it's about time that we have a president that takes the war on drugs literally and knocks out the cartels. Several million? It's hard to say. I mean, when did the drug cartel business importing the illegal drugs in the United States begin? Was it in the 70s, the 60s, the 50s? When did that trade begin? I really don't have a clear timeline on when it began. 1.8 million every year die from drugs. 100. I don't know how many people die every year due to drug overdoses. You know, it's probably the greatest attack on our country overall when you look at loss of life. And I mean, think about all the crime that's caused. How many people have been murdered for a few dollars, so some junkie could buy drugs that the cartels brought in, right? I mean, the cost from the drug cartels, just in crime alone, in murder and death and destruction, not even the financial, because I mean, there's all kinds of financial injuries from it. You know, it's hard to put numbers on this stuff, isn't it? It's crazy. Oh, that's the right way of thinking. It's frightening, actually. But I don't know when exactly it began. It had to be 60s, 70s, or 50s. I don't know. But it's going to stop now. It's pretty much all stopped. I don't know about how much drugs cost because I'm not a junkie, but that podcast interview Hunter was on, maybe that would have been a good question to ask him. But the illegal drugs, cocaine, heroin, those kind of things, there's had to be massive inflation on those in the last 9-10 months, huh? Since President Trump shut down the border and took shooting these drug boats out of the water. I mean, they're really the prices of illegal drugs has had to go through the roof, which in itself has got to help get people off drugs because they don't have enough money, or maybe it's caused more crime. I don't know. We got to stop it, though. Drugs rarely no, it's like anything else, supply and demand, right? The drugs are harder to get. They're going to go up in price. That's the way it works. And beef is expensive. That's true. Beef is expensive. But I thought liberals thought we shouldn't be eating beef. Like AOC did, and the Democrats said that beef was causing global warming and everything else. So now all of a sudden beef is good? Right. AOC should be happy at the price of beef. That's a garbage truck ran over something. Oh no, it's a box truck, not a garbage truck. Sirens. Oh, they were going the other way. Thought we might get some action. Liberals have been telling us that cows are causing global warming since AOC's been on the scene for years now. It's like this other thing that AOC is pushing. Oh, you MAGA people are welcome in the Democrat Party. MAGA people are not leaving the MAGA movement. It's a total lie. It's total lies. To leave the Republican Party and become a Democrat, it's not the same as becoming a Republican after being a Democrat. You would have, as MAGA people, we're pro-life, right? So you have to all of a sudden be pro-abortion. Who's going to do that? We're for really no taxation, which is what the president's trying to achieve. And then you got to be a tax and spend liberal. You can't go from conservative to liberal unless you have like a motorcycle accident and have a serious head injury. Yeah. You have to betray your whole moral code, your whole moral compass. But you can wake up one day and have morals and become a Republican. That works. It's completely different. Make sure you subscribe if you're new to my channel, guys. My name's Brian Craig. This is where MAGA comes to talk. Usually I'm in my studio taking live calls. So if you look at my long-form videos here on my channel, you'll see me taking live calls. And I will have a podcast some point later in the day. I'm going to go to church with my daughter today. I'm not sure which service we're going to go to. But, or which church, because, there's a couple different churches we like. I'm not sure which one we're going to go to. Left MAGA. See what I mean? Nobody leaves MAGA that's really MAGA. It just doesn't happen. It doesn't work that way. I mean, they're always trying to get some ridiculous narrative going. Like yesterday on X, did you see this thing with Bongino? They tried to get this thing going that Kash Patel brought Dan Bongino on as deputy director of the FBI without the required background checks. And Dan Bongino responded to it and said, of course they did the criminal background checks and all of that, of course. They're always trying to... The left just never do anything honestly, right? They never do anything honestly. Everything they do is just lies, misrepresent. Like that guy that said he was MAGA. He's not MAGA. Oh, I'm MAGA. I have enough. I'm not MAGA anymore. BS. They're just always trying to get some trend going. Just doesn't work anymore. This Epstein thing they dropped this week was a total backfire. You know, we've got multiple Democrats. There's a new Democrat. I've never heard of her before. A black female Democrat. I'm going to cover this on my podcast. I'll go over the article. She was communicating directly with Epstein during congressional hearings. I mean, what the hell, these Democrats, right? To try to hurt Trump. These people are out of their minds. They're just out of their minds. But, you know, hey, luckily we're sane. Our president's sane, and we're winning. So, you know, they've almost given up openly opposing Trump. So now they're trying to act as if they got a new movement. But Marjorie, I can't remember what she called it. Marjorie Taylor Greene, which shows how stupid she is. She's trying to form her own anti-MAGA movement. It's 4 letters. AF, I forgot the second two. Does anyone know? America First. I can't remember what the other word, you know. For an acronym to work, it has to be something you can say, like MAGA or NASA, right? It doesn't work. AF, I forgot the other two. So she thinks she's going to start some movement. They're trying to create this, and this is what she's doing. And they want her to be the leader of it. They're probably going to run her for president, or at least they're thinking about it, right? They're trying to set up a third party from MAGA. Now, if you remember when Trump left office after his first term, they were trying to get him to start a third party because they knew that's a losing proposition, a MAGA party. And he said, no, I'm going to take back our Republican Party. So they're trying to, with Marjorie Taylor Greene, they're trying to create a third party from MAGA. Good luck. Mm-hmm. Yeah, AFAO. What's the AO? America First. What's the AO? I forgot. That's Marjorie Taylor Greene's movement. AFAO. What's the AO stand for? America First. Ask Obama. I don't know. What's the AO stand for? AFAO. That doesn't work. I like that one. I like that one. No, I like the a-holes only one better. America only. That's a terrible acronym. AFAO. AFAO. I like that. See, Trump would never come up with that because you could do the a-holes only. You can't. You got. You know. She's not good at the marketing. Exactly. It's a good one. That's a good one. See, we got you guys are more creative when it comes to the branding than Marjorie Taylor Greene. Make sure you get your Starbucks today, okay? Mom Donnie says boycott Starbucks, so today's the day you want to go to Starbucks. Gulf of America, that's right. AFAO. Oh my goodness. People are going to have fun with that. I like that a-holes only, though. That's great. That's great. President Trump is very good at the branding and marketing. Mm-hmm. Men won't follow women. They will if they're hot and smart and charismatic. Right? I mean, how do you think Candace Owens got big? Candace Owens is very charismatic and good looking. That's how she became so popular. Very good speaker. Men will follow women, but and a lot of MAGA people were following Marjorie Taylor Greene, Carrie Lake, exactly. Would you guys like Carrie Lake to be the VP for J.D. Vance? What do you guys? I'd vote for that ticket. Mm-hmm. No, she's not. But we all liked her. You know, we all liked her. I mean, when I interviewed her, you could tell I thought she was awesome. I didn't know about all this stuff. Mm-hmm. Well, if JD doesn't have a chance, you should not be worried, Trey. We're going to let the Democrats tell us who we should make. The Democrats love to tell us who the electable Republicans are. That's why the Republicans let them push John McCain on us. Look how that turned out. We lost. The Democrats pushed Mitt Romney on us. We lost. Mm-hmm. Josh Shapiro, good luck. Good luck. I'd like to know the true story about him. You know, Josh Shapiro was Kamala's first pick for her running mate, and he said no. I'd like to know what he based that on specifically. I'm guessing they had polling data right then that it was hopeless for her. F. Kirk, you mean Captain Kirk? You don't like Captain? What are you, Picard guy? You don't like Captain Kirk? You like Jean-Luc Picard? Okay. Whatever. I'm a Kirk guy. No, this is wonderful. You know, this thing with Marjorie Taylor Greene happened at a great time because we're purging this from the party now, right? We're smoking out these traitors in the party now, these fake MAGA. It's much better this happened now than a year from now when we're approaching the midterms, right? Well, the midterms would be over in a year, but you know what I mean? If this happened after the first of the year, we're going to be in midterm election season. And it's better to smoke these traitors out now than next year. But Laura Loomer, she asked people on Twitter if she should move to Georgia, meaning, you know, start exposing Marjorie Taylor Greene. And, you know, listen to my podcast last night. I had Loomer on the phone, and she was talking about how Marjorie Taylor Greene screwed her over when she ran for Congress. It was fascinating. While Ron DeSantis is doing a lot of good things, he betrayed us. I'm so conflicted about DeSantis. Yeah, I know. My wife said last night, she said, we were watching something on TV, and she says, "It's how many felony convictions does President Trump have? 30 what? I forgot the exact number. Is it 33 convictions? Whatever." And my wife's like, it's so funny. She's like, these liberals think that we care about these 33 fake convictions they have on Trump, right? I mean, you know, they've tried everything. This is just their latest this Marjorie Taylor Greene thing is just their latest political ploy from Acme. You know, like President Trump's the Roadrunner. The Never Trumpers are the Coyote. 39, we don't care. It could be 59, 139. We don't care because they're all fake convictions. We all know this. AFAO, yes. I don't know why people are obsessing over Bubba Clinton all of a sudden. Is there something new with President Clinton that I don't know about? That something happened? Was there a breaking news story since I've started this stream that I missed? I don't know. Maybe so. See, I think Bill Clinton. You know, Bill Clinton's very smart. Okay, if you go back to people today don't know Clinton, and they really don't. He's a liberal Democrat, but he's brilliant, and he can't control his penis, but he's brilliant. Although now maybe it doesn't work so well because he's so old. And I suspect that Bill Clinton is a secret friend and advisor to President Trump. I really do. I've thought that for quite some time, because out of all of the ex-presidents, he's the one, you don't hear him trashing Trump. That doesn't mean he hasn't said something or two because his wife was running against him. But I think that because President Trump has said a couple of nice things about President Clinton. And that doesn't mean that they agree on the issues, but he's somebody that I think President Clinton is somebody that President Trump can call up to run things by him that he's doing on international policy and everything. Yeah. Yeah, I think he is a secret advisor. He can't get advice from the other ex-presidents. They're all assholes. I mean, you know, Obama and G.W. Bush, they're always out there trashing President Trump. But Bill Clinton, I do believe, is the only ex-president that he talks to, and I think he advises him on how to do things. Because, you know, Bill Clinton, you know, people forget when if you go back and listen to him in his prime, when he's talking about the issues in foreign policy, he is not a stupid man. He is a very smart man when it comes to things. His wife's an idiot, but when he first got elected, people always thought she was the brains of the family, and then when we saw he was the brains, right, not her, Hillary's an idiot. And it's possible, I'm not saying this is the definitive truth, but it is possible that President Trump, like the whole Epstein files, haven't been released because President Trump uses Bill Clinton as an advisor, and maybe he's protecting Bill Clinton. I don't know. What do you guys think? See, one thing I always tell people, you hear me talk about this a lot, when you want to do something, and this is Tony Robbins 101. You know, you don't spend all that money on Tony Robbins. This is what Tony Robbins basically says. If you want to be successful at something, find somebody else who's been successful at what you want to be successful at and get their advice or copy them, right? You know, like when I first decided I was going to do podcasting professionally. When I first started doing it, I was kind of doing the podcast like everything about the podcast, like the radio show. And then I realized that it wasn't working. This is when I first started the podcasting. This was over 10 years ago, you know, because radio and podcast are different things. So I at the time the number one podcast was that idiot liberal Mark Maron. So I said to myself, what is he doing that? And I'm not talking about his opinions and everything, because he's a liberal jerk. He just did like his final podcast with Obama, right? How does podcasting work as opposed to radio? So I started listening to Mark Maron. He was the number one, the WTF podcast at the time. Rogan hadn't risen. I don't even know if Rogan was podcasting then. And there were some other big podcasters at the time that faded away. And it's like, okay, I understand now. The audience is a little different. Okay. So in business-wise, it's a different thing. You know, the business end of things. You know, that's how you do it. And that's what President Clinton's doing with... or President Trump's doing with President Clinton, I believe. I believe that he's using President Clinton as
a secret behind-the-scenes advisor. As an example, it's very normal for ex-presidents to use other presidents as advisors from other parties. President Kennedy, President Eisenhower was a regular private secret advisor to President Kennedy, and Eisenhower was a Republican, right? And of course, Kennedy was a Democrat. So yeah, that's very normal, and I just have a feeling about that with President Clinton and President Trump, and that very well may be why the Epstein files have not been fully released, because he's protecting Bill Clinton. What do you guys think about that? Is that crazy, or is that a possibility that he's protecting Bill Clinton? Bill Clinton was involved in a lot of international relations with the Palestinians and everything, with Israel, in some pretty difficult times too, during the height of the homicide bombings and everything else. So while he was working on all of this, he very well could have talked to him. Yeah. He can't get advice from Obama or Bush. They hate him. Now, these are reading glasses. I have perfect vision far away, but I need the glasses to read the chat. These are just reading glasses. I buy these. They're like 50 cents each on Amazon, $1 each on Amazon. I buy them by the box, and they fall apart, and they're laying all over the house and in my cars and everything else. And that's somebody that he can... somebody like President Trump, it's hard for him to run ideas by people, because he needs somebody that's his equal. That's why they go to former presidents. It's possible. It is very, very possible. It would certainly explain why all the Epstein things haven't been released. Yeah, former president. Everybody else around a president is thinking about their future. What am I going to do after this? Especially in a second term. What am I going to do after this? Am I going to run for president? Am I going to be in the Senate? What's my next job going to be? When they have counsel from a former president, they don't have those ambitions, except in rare situations. And Bill Clinton has no respect for Bush or Obama. When Obama was president, Bill Clinton humiliated him at the White House once. It showed. This is what I mean about Bill Clinton being smart. There was sometimes I'll tell you. Do you know who one of Bill Clinton's advisors was in secret? President Nixon. He was still alive. President Nixon. Bill Clinton would sometimes call him about things and get his advice. And that's crazy, right? But Nixon even went to the White House to meet him, Bill Clinton. Obama was so humiliated by President Clinton when he was president of the White House. This was one of my favorite moments of Obama's 8 years of garbage. There was some event. I don't remember what the purpose of it was. I'm sure this is online. And former President Clinton was invited to the White House for some announcement, and they were in the White House press briefing room and started taking questions. It was President Obama, President Clinton, and some report. And Obama was there at the podium, and President Clinton was standing off to the side, and they started taking questions. They were asking the press corps were asking Obama questions. Then somebody asked Bill Clinton a question. And Bill Clinton came up, pushed Obama out of the way. You couldn't even hardly tell. And then planted himself at the podium and started calling on people. And I remember Brit Hume on Fox. He had some great analysis. It was beautiful. He says, it looks like President Clinton invited the junior senator from Illinois to the White House today, Barack Obama. It was crazy. And at one point, Obama, after a few minutes, realized what happened, and he left. And Bill Clinton kept the press conference going. It shows you a real charismatic leader as opposed to some DEI official, Obama. So I'm not 100% sure, but I'm pretty confident that President Trump is friends with Clinton and they talk. And that would totally explain why he hasn't released the full Epstein files, and that is to protect Bill Clinton, his friend and advisor. That's, I mean, I'm not saying that's a fact. I'm not, but it makes sense to me. Do you agree with that? That's a possibility. Yes or no? What do you guys think? Is that a possibility? Yes or no? You can let me know in the chat. This coffee is excellent this morning. If you're new to my program, make sure that you subscribe, guys. You can come to a lot of yeses, some nopes. You can come to conclusions and theories based on everything else. Yeah, I think there's more people agreeing that that's a possibility than not. Yep. That would explain a lot. Maybe one day we'll find out. I really hope that see a lot of yeses. Mom Donnie says boycott Starbucks, so go to Starbucks today, guys. This has 5 shots of espresso in it. Yeah, make sure you guys subscribe. On my next stream, I'll be taking live calls in the studio. I will have another podcast today. Yeah, and make sure you listen. I did 2 podcast episodes yesterday, and the one I did last night, I had Laura Loomer on. So if you watch that, you kind of get a behind the scenes of that. It's kind of crazy how it came together. I don't do a lot of interviews or guests. It's just not my thing, I'd rather talk to you guys on the phone than most guests, but I was talking to what was it? Sean from Massachusetts. We were talking about Marjorie Taylor Greene's betrayal, and I said to him, maybe I should interview Laura Loomer. So I said, you know what? I texted her. I said, I'm going to text her right now. You see this on the podcast, and I texted her during the podcast live while I was talking to him, and then she texted me back like 5 or 10 minutes later. And said, yeah, sure. And then I took a break and I called her, and she says, well, I'm at dinner. She says, I'll step outside. She says, call me back in 5 minutes. She says, I'm at dinner with some people. And she didn't say who, so that sounds like VIP people to me. And she says, I'll step away from the dinner table and go outside. Call me back in 5 minutes. And then I had her on. But she said, I don't have a lot of time. I got to get it. So whoever she was with. So you kind of get to see the live thing happening on the podcast. AFAO, I get, exactly. America First. What's the AO stand for again? America First. I forgot the other 2 letters. This thing about Israel, right? America First. We're helping every. I had a guy called me on the podcast last night with this. Well, it's America First, not Israel. And I said, well, we've been helping and defending South Korea since the end of the Korean War in the early 50s. Why aren't you guys saying pull out of South Korea? Exactly. He didn't really have an answer for that. Didn't think about it too hard. AFAO is Marjorie Taylor Greene's new thing. She came up with this, and one of the people in the chat, I couldn't remember what the AO stands for, and somebody said assholes only. So I think that's good. Yeah, that sounds like a movement of assholes. So that's a good one. And she came up with a great acronym. My favorite, Don Jr. When he was at a rally, and he said MAGA stands for Michael Avenatti got arrested. Remember that? That was hilarious. Michael Avenatti got arrested. That cracked me up. Yeah, that was pretty good. That was funny. Well, I guess good marketing genes run in the Trump family, but AFAO is terrible. An acronym has to be a word that you could say like MAGA. NASA. What are some other acronyms that you can say that are words? I don't know. It's too early in the morning. But AFAO is awkward, and it's not, you can't make a word out of that. Well, there's no letter like the F word. I mean, that's a different thing. FAFO is totally different. MASH, that's right. Mobile Army Surgical Hospital. MASH, that's right. That's a good one. Yeah. It's got to be AFAO. That's a terrible acronym. Sorry, Marjorie Taylor Greene. Marjorie Trader Greene. If you're new, make sure that you subscribe. YOLO, that's right. That's a good one. What are some other acronyms that are words that you could say? The GOAT. That's a good one, right? What are some other acronyms that you could say in a word? AFAO just doesn't cut it. Track. Yeah. No. That was a bad one, Marjorie Taylor Greene. Antifa, yeah, that sadly is one too. All right, guys, listen, I'm done with my coffee. I'm going to head home. Got a bunch of stuff to do. Make sure you check out my podcast last night with Loomer and the one I did earlier in the day. Two very good podcasts yesterday right here on the channel. Check them out. And if you're new to my channel, make sure you subscribe. My name is Brian Craig. This is where MAGA comes to talk. I'll talk to you